Jake gently pushed the back door of the alley open, burdened with a couple of garbage bags. He walked over to the dumpster, heaving the bags in with a tired sigh. Leaning on the edge of the bin, he stretched his back, letting out a yawn. Suddenly, the sound of running steps reached his ears. "Come on, man. I'm tired and sore. I can't do this right now," Jake protested as two familiar bullies from school sprinted past him, fear in their eyes. Puzzled, he wondered why they didn't beat him up as usual. Soon after, Blake, the main bully, came running, slapping Jake upside the head, yelling, "Run, you moron," before disappearing around the corner. Holding his head, Jake questioned the strange behavior. Just as he was about to turn back, growls and more running footsteps approached from the end of the alley. Jake turned to see a horde of people running towards him. At first, he thought it was a prank until he noticed the blood and missing limbs among the crowd. Wow! Whoa, whoa, whoa! Jake started running down the alley, barely escaping the grasp of the ravenous crowd. Chaos unfolded around him. People running for their lives, cars crashing, gunshots and screams echoing in the distance. Amid the pandemonium, a car screeched to a stop in front of Jake. To his surprise, Blake grabbed and pulled him into the driver's seat. "What the hell, man?" Jake exclaimed as Blake sped off, narrowly avoiding the chaos. Half of Jake's body dangled out of the car window, and a hand grabbed at his pants, leaving his legs bare. Blake maneuvered through the chaos, shouting at Jake to get his pasty white ass out of his face. Adjusting himself into the passenger seat, Jake realized his legs were exposed. Blake explained the horrifying events they witnessed near the school and the sudden appearance of these relentless pursuers. Jake looked out to see helicopters flying west, realizing the town was overrun by zombies. Blake handed Jake a bag with spare clothes, urging him to change. As Jake grumbled about the condition of the clothes, Blake smacked him and emphasized the need to put something on. After the quick change, Jake questioned their destination. Blake suggested heading west, following the helicopters to find a safe place and refuel along the way. When asked about his family, Blake dismissed the idea, mentioning his problematic father and expressing more concern for his pet rabbit, Snuggles. Jake shared his detached connection to his foster family and agreed to the plan of heading west. Amidst the chaos, laughter, and smacks, the duo set out on an uncertain and perilous journey. The night unfolded with the hum of the engine and the eerie glow of streetlights flashing by as Blake navigated through the chaos. Jake couldn't shake the surreal feeling of their escape. The distant sounds of gunshots and screams continued, a haunting backdrop to their journey. As they sped down the highway, joining the swarm of desperate vehicles fleeing the town, Jake glanced at the helicopter lights in the distance. The darkness was punctuated by the occasional explosion or the distant moans of the undead. It all felt like a nightmare Jake couldn't wake up from. With the car radio malfunctioning, their only connection to the outside world was the visual chaos playing out beyond the windshield. Blake's grip on the steering wheel tightened as they encountered more obstacles on the road. Abandoned vehicles, panicked pedestrians, and the occasional stumbling figure that sent shivers down Jake's spine. Blake broke the tense silence, his eyes focused on the road ahead. "We need to find a safe place, get some supplies, and figure out what the hell is happening." Jake, still processing the events, nodded in agreement. "Yeah, but where? And what's causing all of this?" Blake shot him a serious look. "I don't know, man, but we can't stay here. We follow those helicopters, hope they lead us to safety." The miles passed and the night deepened. The once familiar surroundings now felt like an alien landscape. As they approached a gas station, Blake pulled over. The flickering fluorescent lights illuminated the scene, revealing scattered debris and a sense of abandonment. "We need fuel," Blake stated the obvious, looking around cautiously. "And anything else we can scavenge." As they filled up the tank, Jake wandered through the convenience store, grabbing water bottles and non-perishables. The silence was broken only by the hum of the generator, creating an unsettling contrast to the chaos outside. Back in the car, Blake glanced at Jake. "We can't do this alone. We need to find others, survivors like us." Jake nodded, realizing the magnitude of their situation. The radio crackled to life, a voice breaking through the static. "If you can hear this, head to the evacuation point. Coordinates are..." Blake tuned in, jotting down the coordinates on a piece of paper. "Evacuation point. Might be our best shot." The journey continued, the road stretching endlessly. They encountered pockets of survivors, forming impromptu alliances, sharing information, and piecing together the fragmented details of the unfolding disaster. As they neared the evacuation point, signs of hope emerged. Military personnel directed the survivors, and a sense of organization replaced the previous chaos. The helicopters above provided a surreal sense of security. Amid relief, Jake looked at Blake. "We made it." But the uncertainty lingered in Blake's eyes. "This might just be the beginning, Jake. We survived tonight, but who knows what tomorrow will bring." The evacuation point, though seemingly secure, exuded an unsettling atmosphere. The air was thick with tension, and shadows danced ominously under the flickering lights. As Jake and Blake approached the designated area, a gnawing feeling of dread clawed at them. The military personnel ushered survivors into a massive, dimly lit warehouse. The echoing footsteps and distant whispers created an eerie symphony of anxiety. The air smelled of fear and desperation, a stark contrast to the reassuring facade of order. Once inside, they noticed a group huddled in the corner, their faces etched with terror. A woman, her eyes vacant, mumbled unintelligibly to herself. As Jake and Blake cautiously joined the gathering, the woman turned to them, her gaze sending shivers down their spines. "They're everywhere," she whispered, her voice quivering. "No escape." The realization dawned on Jake and Blake that safety was an illusion, and the nightmare had followed them into this supposed haven. The military personnel, armed and on edge, exchanged hushed conversations, their expressions betraying a hidden fear. The warehouse seemed to amplify every creak and groan, heightening the oppressive atmosphere. Suddenly the lights flickered, casting elongated shadows on the cold concrete floor. An ominous silence enveloped the space as the electricity momentarily failed. A guttural moan echoed through the darkness, and panic rippled through the survivors. The military personnel hurriedly checked their weapons, their trained composure strained by the encroaching dread. The woman from the corner began to scream, her cries of despair mingling with the distant sounds of something inhuman. The survivors, once hopeful, now clung to each other in terror. A low growl reverberated from the shadows, and Blake instinctively pulled Jake closer. The oppressive darkness seemed to conceal unseen horrors, making every corner a potential threat. A sudden burst of gunfire shattered the uneasy quiet, punctuated by agonized screams. Panic erupted within the warehouse as survivors scattered, seeking refuge from an unseen menace. Jake and Blake, propelled by fear, fled into the labyrinthine corridors of the warehouse. The occasional flickering emergency lights only heightened the sense of vulnerability, their footsteps echoing like a sinister heartbeat. As they turned a corner, they stumbled upon a grisly scene. Military personnel, now turned, feasting on the remains of their comrades. The stench of blood and decay hung heavily in the air. Frozen in terror, Jake and Blake witnessed the grotesque transformation of those they thought were protectors. Without a word, they retraced their steps, guided only by the haunting sounds of pursuit. The once promising evacuation point now felt like a death trap, a nightmarish maze with no escape. In the pitch-black darkness, a distant whisper echoed, carrying a chilling message. No one survives. Their desperate flight continued, haunted by the relentless pursuit of the unknown horror lurking within the shadows of the supposed haven. As Jake and Blake navigated the twisted corridors of the warehouse, the unsettling echoes of their footsteps mingled with the distant moans and guttural growls of the pursuing horrors. The air hung heavy with dread, every shadow concealing potential terror. The emergency lights continued their sporadic dance, casting fleeting glimpses of the horrors that lurked in the dark. The survivors they encountered along the way were no longer human. Their vacant eyes and twisted, contorted faces revealed the insidious transformation that had taken hold. Cornered by a dead end, Jake and Blake shared a panicked glance. The unsettling sound of dragging footsteps echoed closer. The silhouette of a disfigured figure emerged from the shadows, its features obscured by the dim light. A chilling realization dawned. The once human creature hungered for their flesh. Without hesitation, they retraced their steps, navigating the labyrinthine corridors in a desperate attempt to evade the encroaching nightmare. The warehouse seemed to warp and shift, its structure becoming an inescapable maze. Panic tightened its grip as the guttural sounds of pursuit intensified. Amidst the chaos, Blake spotted a partially ajar door leading to what appeared to be an office. With a burst of adrenaline, they rushed inside, slamming the door shut behind them. The room was a temporary sanctuary, the silence a stark contrast to the pandemonium beyond. They caught their breath, acutely aware that the monsters lurked just outside the fragile barrier. As they scanned the room for any signs of safety, their eyes fell upon a flickering computer screen. Blake hurriedly tapped the keyboard, hoping to uncover information that might offer a shred of hope. The screen displayed fragmented messages, government warnings, and encrypted files. The realization sank in. The outbreak was not an isolated incident. The government had known, and whatever hellish experiment had been unleashed was now consuming everything in its path. A low growl emanated from the other side of the door, the creatures outside sensing their presence. The flickering lights cast distorted shadows, heightening the oppressive atmosphere. Blake found a makeshift weapon, a metal pipe left abandoned in the corner. The door trembled under the force of the pursuing horrors. Fear etched across their faces. Jake and Blake knew they had only moments before the fragile barrier gave way. The realization that the true horror lay not just in the monsters outside, but in the knowledge that nowhere was safe. In a desperate attempt to escape, they located a vent in the corner of the room. With a quick exchange of glances, they removed the vent cover, revealing the dark abyss beyond. Crawling into the confined space, the echoes of their frantic breaths mingled with the growls of the pursuing creatures. As they navigated the claustrophobic maze of vents, the haunting sounds of pursuit faded, replaced by an eerie stillness. Little did they know that the vent network stretched throughout the warehouse, offering both a potential route to safety and a dark labyrinth where new horrors awaited. The chilling whisper lingered in the air. No one survives. The nightmare had only just begun, and the warehouse's dark corridors held secrets that defied reason. The horror continued to unfold, twisting their reality into a nightmarish tapestry of survival and despair. Jake and Blake crawled through the labyrinthine vents, their hope of escaping the horrors outside slowly dwindling. The stifling darkness enveloped them, each twist and turn increasing their disorientation. As they crawled deeper into the unknown, an ominous realization crept over them. The vent system was a maze with no clear exit. The distant sounds of pursuit and guttural growls persisted, echoing through the metallic passages. The oppressive atmosphere within the vents seemed to intensify, a palpable sense of doom settling in their chests. Their flashlights flickered, casting erratic shadows on the cold, metallic surfaces. Suddenly, the vent ahead of them seemed to widen into a dimly lit chamber. Eager for a respite, they cautiously crawled out, only to find themselves in a nightmarish space. As Jake and Blake prepared to make their last stand against the encroaching horde, a sudden rumbling shook the chamber, causing debris to rain down from above. "What the hell is happening?" Jake shouted over the din, his voice trembling with fear. Blake's eyes widened in horror as he looked up at the crumbling ceiling. "I don't know, but we need to get out of here, now." Before they could react, the massive, grotesque creature emerged from the shadows above them, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly intensity. "Oh my God," Jake breathed, his heart pounding in his chest. "What is that thing?" Blake shook his head, his expression grim. "I don't think we want to find out." As the creature reached down with massive, clawed hands, the ravenous horde closed in around them, their hungry moans filling the chamber with dread. "We have to do something," Jake cried, his hands shaking as he searched for a weapon. But before they could make a move, the chamber erupted into chaos as the creature and the horde clashed in a frenzied battle. "We need to find cover," Blake shouted, pulling Jake towards a pile of debris. As they huddled together, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble violently, threatening to collapse at any moment. "We're trapped," Jake exclaimed, his voice rising in panic. "We'll find a way out," Blake replied, his tone determined despite the fear in his eyes. "We have to keep fighting." In a final, desperate act of defiance, they braced themselves for the inevitable as the darkness closed in around them, engulfing them in a maelstrom of terror and despair. And as the chamber crumbled into ruins, their screams were swallowed by the abyss, leaving behind only the chilling whisper of the nightmarish horrors that lurked within. Chapter 1. Whispering Woods. The moon hung low in the ink-black sky, casting an eerie glow on the desolate cabin nestled deep in the heart of the woods. John, a man of few words, stared out of the window, the distant sound of snapping twigs and rustling leaves the only companions in the silent night. The radio crackled with fragmented news reports, cities overrun, chaos spreading, a viral outbreak consuming the world. John's heart raced as the reality of the situation dawned on him. He paced the small cabin, running a hand through his disheveled hair, a sense of dread settling in the pit of his stomach. "This can't be happening," he muttered to himself, eyes darting around the room as if searching for answers in the dim light. A sudden thud echoed from outside, causing John to freeze. He approached the door cautiously, his hand trembling as he reached for the doorknob. The cold metal sent a shiver down his spine as he pulled the door open, revealing the pitch-black expanse beyond. In the shadows, he discerned the silhouette of a figure, staggering and swaying. Fear gripped him as the figure turned, its eyes vacant, its movements unnatural. A guttural moan escaped its lips, and John stumbled backward, slamming the door shut. "No, no, no," he whispered, panic rising within him. He rushed to the radio, desperately tuning into any signal that could provide clarity. The voices on the airwaves were a cacophony of fear, confusion, and pleas for help. The outbreak had reached catastrophic proportions, leaving John feeling like a lone survivor adrift in a sea of madness. As the night wore on, the distant moans of the infected mingled with the haunting whispers of the wind. John, trapped in the cabin, clutched a flashlight and a kitchen knife, his only defenses against the unknown terror that lurked beyond the wooden walls. In the flickering candlelight, he sat in the corner of the room, eyes wide, and ears strained for any sign of approaching danger. The once comforting solitude of the woods now felt like a prison, each creak and groan of the cabin a reminder of the encroaching darkness. Chapter 2. Echoes of Desolation. The air inside the cabin hung heavy with tension as John fumbled with the TV remote, desperately trying to glean any information from the flickering screen. The news reports painted a bleak picture: cities overwhelmed, governments collapsing, and the relentless spread of the viral outbreak. The infection, slow but inexorable, seemed to seep into every corner of the world. "What do I do? How do I survive this?" John muttered, his eyes fixed on the television as if it held the answers to the nightmare unfolding outside. Outside the cabin, the numbers of the infected began to grow, their distorted silhouettes visible through the thin curtains. Their movements were sluggish, but the sheer mass of their presence sent a shiver down John's spine. It was as if they could sense his existence, drawn to the isolated cabin like moths to a flame. With a sinking feeling, John turned the dial on the radio, hoping for guidance on how to defend against the encroaching threat. The voices on the radio spoke of desperation, improvised weapons, headshots, and the importance of avoiding close encounters. The infected were relentless, and only a blow to the brain seemed to ensure their demise. Arming himself with a baseball bat and a kitchen knife, John hesitated by the door, the distant groans of the infected reaching a haunting crescendo. The realization hit him: survival meant confronting the horrors outside. As he stepped into the moonlit night, the dense forest seemed to come alive with the slow shuffle of the infected. Each step was a dance with death, and every swing of the bat was a desperate plea for survival. The metallic thud of the baseball bat against decaying skulls echoed through the trees, each strike accompanied by the low moans of the fallen. In the eerie silence that followed, John's breath hung in the frigid air as he surveyed the darkened surroundings. The town, once a haven, loomed in the distance. The moonlight revealed its eerie silhouette, a desolate place that once thrived with life. His heart pounded as he took his first steps toward the town, a sense of foreboding settling over him. The forest whispered tales of the horrors that awaited, and John, armed with a bat and knife, braced himself for the unknown horrors that lurked in the shadows. Chapter 3. Shadows in Daylight. The first rays of dawn began to break over the small East European town, casting long shadows on its broken streets. The city, once a vibrant tapestry of life, now lay in ruins. Shattered glass and remnants of barricades painted a picture of chaos that had befallen the unsuspecting community. As John cautiously navigated the debris-strewn streets, the remnants of the night's horrors evident in every corner. he spotted a clinic, its doors ajar, inviting him into the unknown. Inside, broken furniture and toppled equipment painted a grim picture. But amidst the chaos, John discovered medical supplies, bandages, antibiotics, and painkillers that could prove invaluable in the days to come. Rummaging through the supplies, a muffled sound caught his attention. Huddled in one of the nurses' stations, a small boy and his mother cowered, fear etched across their faces. John approached cautiously, assuring them that he meant no harm. "Are you the only ones left?" he asked, the weight of the question hanging in the air. The boy's name was Alex and his mother was Elena. They shared a harrowing tale of the outbreak. A visitor from out of town, unknowingly carrying the virus, had unleashed the pandemic upon the once isolated community. Alex, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and curiosity, spoke up. "We had to hide here. The infected were everywhere. It was like they knew we were here." Elena nodded in agreement, her voice strained with the weight of their ordeal. "We thought we were the last ones. The town fell apart so quickly and we had nowhere to go." John empathized with their plight, offering a glimmer of hope. He shared his plan to fortify his cabin in the woods, away from the infected masses. Alex and Elena, with nowhere else to turn, decided to join him on this perilous journey. As they left the clinic, supplies in tow, the city seemed to hold its breath. The sea of infected stood like silent sentinels, oblivious to the trio making their way through the desolate streets. The shadows of the town seemed to dance with whispers of the past, and the sun, now fully risen, painted the broken landscape in hues of sorrow. Chapter 4. Veiled Horizons. The trio made their way back to the cabin, the weight of the shotgun, an old break-action Spartan, hanging in John's grip. The young boy, Alex, gazed at the firearm with wide-eyed fascination, but John quickly moved it out of his reach, aware of the danger it posed in inexperienced hands. The gun chambered in 12J, and a handful of bullets were a grim reminder of the harsh realities they faced. "You'll have to wait until you're older to handle something like this, Alex," John cautioned, his eyes reflecting the gravity of their situation. As they walked, Elena began to recount the harrowing tale of the outbreak, her words weaving a narrative of fear and chaos. Her voice carried the weight of the tragedy that had befallen the small town. She explained how an unsuspecting visitor, sick and desperate in the clinic, broke free and unleashed the virus upon the unsuspecting community. The military's attempts to control the situation only led to further chaos, turning the town into a prison where citizens fought both the infected and the military. "It was like a nightmare we couldn't escape," Elena said, her voice filled with a mixture of sorrow and frustration. Amid this somber dialogue, Elena turned her attention to John, curiosity etched on her face. "Why were you in a cabin by yourself, John? What do you do for a living?" John, a writer by profession, responded, "I write horror." Elena chuckled. "What a strange choice in times like these. What kind of horror do you write?" "Everything," John replied with a wry smile, "but I never expected my stories to come to life." Amidst the laughter, Alex chimed in, "Well, I guess you're out of luck because horror is everywhere now." The group chuckled nervously, the reality of their situation hanging in the air. As they approached the cabin, tension lingered. A pair of infected stood frozen outside, seemingly in a hibernated state. Weird sounds emanated from them, adding an eerie soundtrack to the early morning. The group huddled, trying to figure out how to navigate past the frozen threats without alerting the others lurking nearby. Chapter 5. A Symphony of Chaos. The cabin, now a besieged fortress, echoed with the relentless pounding of infected outside. In the midst of the frantic turmoil, Emily emerged like a tempest, her wild auburn hair a flag of rebellion against the encroaching chaos. As the trio observed from their vantage point, Emily's entrance was nothing short of a cinematic revelation. She seized a bottle of whiskey, her movements deliberate and fluid. The glass shattered, the fragments glittering like a cascade of stars in the dim cabin interior. With a Molotov cocktail in hand, Emily approached a window, her gaze fierce and unyielding. In one fluid motion, she broke the glass, the shards sparkling in the flickering light. The fiery cocktail sailed through the night, landing amidst the horde with a burst of flames that painted the scene in an infernal glow. Undeterred by the encircling danger, Emily armed herself with a gun. The sharp report of a single shot echoed through the chaos, as she dispatched one of the infected with uncanny precision, a headshot worthy of any action hero. But Emily's performance had only just begun. With a crowbar as her chosen weapon, she ascended to the rooftop with the agility of a parkour enthusiast. Flames licked at the edges, creating a halo of danger around her. On the cabin's rooftop, a battleground of flickering shadows, Emily's silhouette moved with a dance of calculated recklessness. With each swing and kick, she dispatched the infected, her movements a symphony of survival. The sharp edge of her crowbar became an extension of her unyielding will. As the chaos reached its peak, Emily reached into her bag, a repository of survival essentials. Amidst the makeshift bandages and medical supplies, she found a grenade, a last resort that spoke volumes about her willingness to go to extremes. In a bold move, she hurled the grenade over the edge, an explosion marking her dramatic descent from the rooftop. The world erupted in fiery chaos around her as she landed, her leg absorbing the impact with a painful jolt. "That didn't happen in the movies," Emily muttered, her wry smile fading into a grimace of pain. The trio, silent witnesses to her adrenaline-fueled spectacle, now faced the challenge of saving Emily from whatever remained of the infected. John proposed a plan. "I'll lead them away, make a lot of noise. Since they don't move fast, I can outrun them. Follow me to a hole I know. They might just jump in." As John executed his plan, Emily continued her valiant fight. Despite her injured leg, she swung and kicked, her crowbar an extension of her fierce will to survive. The battle reached a crescendo as John intervened. He threw a rock, screamed at the infected, and lured them away with a chaotic dance of noise. As if inspired by a child who had seen too many action movies, Emily quipped, "Where's everybody going? Is it bingo night?" Alex, in awe of her cool demeanor, exclaimed, "That's a cool line." Elena, more practical, rolled her eyes and urged, "Hurry up and get over here so we can fix you up." Chapter 6. Shadows of the Past. The remnants of John's leading the zombies away plan had left the cabin a charred memory. The group, now huddled in the smoky aftermath, began to assess their options. Emily, her hair still bearing traces of the fiery chaos, sprawled out with a carefree demeanor that belied the danger that had just unfolded. John, the seasoned survivor, returned from his mission, sweat and exhaustion etched on his face. "Well, the cabin's gone," he remarked dryly, surveying the blackened remains. "Guess we need a new place to hide." As they tended to Emily's injuries, the group huddled together, devising a plan to seek refuge in an old medieval castle atop a distant mountain. Declared a national park, it offered a sanctuary they hoped would be untouched by the spreading infection. With daylight fading, urgency took hold. Alex, wide-eyed and still processing Emily's daring exploits, voiced his admiration. "That was amazing, Emily. You're like a superhero or something." Emily, flashing a nonchalant smile, replied, "Just doing what I can, kid, surviving in style." Her carefree attitude resonated with a laid-back confidence that fascinated Alex, but practicality demanded a revised plan. "We won't make it to the castle in a day," Emily pointed out, unfolding a map and brandishing a compass. "But I know an old camp on the way. We can hole up there for the night." The group agreed, salvaging what they could from the remains of the cabin before embarking on their journey. Emily, leading with a swagger that defied the horrors surrounding them, set the pace. As they traversed the landscape, a chorus of dialogue filled the air, each character revealing glimpses of their personalities. "So, Emily, why were you in that cabin all by yourself?" John inquired, breaking the silence. Emily's response was characteristically breezy. "I was just looking for a quiet place, away from the noise. Didn't think I'd end up inviting all the dead folks for a party." Alex, unable to contain his admiration, chimed in, "You're the coolest person I've ever met. How did you learn to fight like that?" "Comic books and action movies, kid. You pick up a few tricks," Emily teased, a glint of mischief in her eyes. As they neared the old camp, the atmosphere shifted. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting elongated shadows that seemed to dance with whispered secrets. A distant howl echoed through the air, a chilling reminder of the horrors lurking beyond their vision. Chapter 7. Whispers in the Shadows. The once lively camp now lay in haunting silence as the group moved cautiously through abandoned tents, ever watchful for lurking horrors. Emily fearlessly approached two undead figures, her crowbar slicing through decayed flesh with an almost dance-like grace. With each swing, she delivered a catchphrase, turning the grim task into a macabre performance. "One for the crow, you undead fiend." John, the silent strategist, took a covert approach, using a kitchen knife to sever the connection of the second zombie to the living world. The night fell into an uneasy stillness. The decision to seek refuge in the main lodge was unanimous. Emily and John led the way, while Elena and Alex stood guard outside. Whispers of danger lingered in the night air, but the group pressed forward. Inside the lodge, anticipation hung heavy as Emily showcased her combat prowess, dismantling the undead threat with a choreographed dance of survival. Each strike is accompanied by another catchphrase. "Time for a little crowbar therapy, boys." With the lodge secured, tasks were allocated. Alex and Elena fortified the interior, ensuring the safety of their newfound haven. John gathered firewood while Emily, armed with chlorine tablets, set out to collect water for their journey. The night held an ominous stillness, broken by distant howls of the infected. Unbeknownst to the group, shadows moved on the outskirts, silhouettes of sinister intent. A group of 5 armed individuals clad in military gear was observed from a distance. "Look at that girl, she's got skills," one of the armed men remarked. "Yeah, I bet she's got a lot of other types of skills too," another man interjected with a perverted, dirty laugh. The woods echoed with rustling leaves and distant moans of the undead. The night was a canvas painted with uncertainty as the group, unaware of the impending threat, settled into their roles, preparing for the challenges the next day would bring. Chapter 8. Standoff. The night hung heavy with tension as the armed men closed in on the camp, their eyes fixed on John. A shot rang out, barely missing him, grazing his arm as he sought refuge behind a makeshift barricade. Out of nowhere, a voice echoed over a loudspeaker, cutting through the silence. "We want the women. We don't care about you and the boy. Give us them, and we'll let you go." Emily, never one to back down, shouted defiantly, "I don't think you guys could handle me. I'm sensing a lot of little penis energy." Laughter erupted from the bandits, one of them taunting, "I can show you that you're wrong, honey, if you come out here." The leader then issued an ultimatum. They had 1 minute to surrender the women, or they would breach the building. Emily, showcasing a sudden change in demeanor, played along. Okay, just give me a chance to say goodbye to my friends." As panic set in, Emily scrambled around the kitchen, gathering odds and ends to prepare for the impending confrontation. John, bewildered and armed only with a shotgun, struggled to formulate a plan against foes outfitted in high-edge military gear. At the end of the 1-minute countdown, the men outside warned, "We're coming in." Emily, seemingly unfazed, shouted back at them, "Yippee-ki-yay!" The chapter concluded in a tense standoff, the air thick with uncertainty, as Emily hinted at a plan rooted in her past experiences at the camp. Chapter 9. Dance of Shadows. The room erupted in blinding light and deafening blasts. Fully geared and expecting an easy takeover, the armed men, known by nicknames like Tank and Reaper, stormed in. The first room appeared clear, and they called out, "Clear!" Little did they know, a malicious surprise awaited them. A timer triggered the room's lights, illuminating their surroundings. It exploded with shotgun powder, injuring 2 of the soldiers instantly. The room filled with smoke, obscuring vision and setting the stage for an unexpected counterattack. In the thick haze, John, the silent strategist, questioned Emily about the origin of the smoke grenade. "Where did you get that?" "I snagged it when the army was blocking off the city earlier," Emily responded, her tone casual amidst the chaos. Using the smoke as cover, John, with calculated precision, fired 2 shots with the shotgun, aiming for the soldiers' legs, the vulnerable point in their heavily protected bodies. The blasts echoed through the room as the men, known as Shadow and Viper, grunted in pain. The tactical retreat left the remaining men, now disoriented and struggling to regroup, in a haze of confusion. Emily and John, their moves choreographed like a dance of shadows, disappeared into the depths of the lodge, leaving the men to question their ill-fated intrusion. Chapter 10. A Symphony of Chaos. The makeshift army, disarrayed and infuriated by the unexpected resistance, fumbled in their attempts to regroup. Hidden in the shadows, the survivors caught snippets of the men's angry curses and muttered frustrations. "I didn't sign up for this," one of them grumbled. Reaper, their leader, blinded by fury, tossed aside any semblance of a plan. "Forget getting the girl. Let's just kill them all." His enraged declaration reverberated through the night, intensifying the impending chaos. With their lives hanging in the balance, Emily, John, Elena, and Alex braced themselves for the onslaught. Armed adversaries clad in military gear advanced, driven by anger and vengeance. As the men charged forward, a man, blinded by rage and reckless abandon, sprinted into the fray. Unbeknownst to him, concealed by the smoke, lay a treacherous trap, barbed wire. He careened into it and his legs instantly gored. Writhing in pain, he crumpled to the ground, cursing the group in his agony. Seizing the opportunity, Emily, quick and lethal, approached the fallen man. In a swift, calculated motion, she plunged a blade into his neck, extinguishing his life in an instant. As his body fell silent, she darted away, avoiding the retaliatory gunfire from the remaining two soldiers. Chapter 11. The Symphony's Crescendo. As the soldiers ventured deeper into the lodge, their confidence swelled. They couldn't fathom the survivors could elude them for long in the confines of the vast but not limitless space. Their cocky disdain echoed through the hallways until they stumbled upon a room filled with cans tethered by a rope. "You think we're stupid, honey. We're not zombies. This is not going to work on us," one of the soldiers sneered. His bravado shattered as a shotgun round emerged from the ground, striking him down. The last remaining soldier, startled, fired blindly at the source, hitting John's leg as he vanished once again. Cursing the group for the havoc they'd wrought, the lone soldier found himself interrupted by the blare of the lodge's intercom. Emily's voice, cold and unwavering, filled the air. "And then there was one." A sinister glee infused her next words. "Can you smell that? This is where you go boom." In an orchestrated finale, a timer ticked down. The gunpowder light went on and triggered a detonation that engulfed the kitchen in flames. Amidst the chaos, the survivors navigated a secret tunnel leading to the safety of the other cabins. Elena tended to John's injuries as the lodge crumbled behind them, consumed by the inferno. Dialogues and shared glances spoke of both relief and the cost of survival. As the flames flickered, Emily grinned. "I told them I was too much for them." John chuckled. "This crazy little girl's going to be the death of me." Chapter 12. Citadel of Shadows. The journey toward the fort was a symphony of gruesome sights and haunting sounds. Emily, usually bold and outspoken, fell into contemplative silence as the remnants of her past weighed on her. John, sensing her unease, gently prodded. "You okay, Emily?" She sighed, her voice carrying the weight of memories. "Just thinking about how different everything used to be, how alone I was." John reassured her. "You're not alone now. We appreciate you being with us. You're part of this group." The road echoed with the moans of the undead, creating a dissonant harmony of horror. Each step carried them further into the heart of darkness. It was a journey that demanded resilience, not just against the relentless undead, but against the shadows that lurked within. As they approached the fort, the sight of a settlement interrupted their grim march. Emily's gaze shifted from introspection to scrutiny. The settlement, seemingly a refuge, hinted at a struggle for survival etched on the faces of its inhabitants. The fort, once a symbol of safety, now harbored the unseen horrors of human survival. Tensions flared as the group cautiously entered the community. The settlers, war-weary and distrustful, eyed the newcomers with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Amid the uneasy silence, Alex broke the ice. "Hi, we're just looking for a safe place. We mean no harm." A grizzled survivor named Marcus stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "Safe places are scarce these days. What can you offer?" John, ever the diplomat, began detailing their skills and resources. Elena chimed in, emphasizing her medical expertise. Emily, despite her nonchalant demeanor, observed the dynamics, sizing up potential threats. The settlement's leader, a woman named Sarah, remained stoic. "We've seen our fair share of groups. Some bring help, others bring trouble. What makes you different?" Emily, with a smirk, retorted, "We're the ones who survived a bandit attack and blew up a lodge. Trouble finds us, but we know how to deal with it." The settlers exchanged glances, torn between caution and the prospect of capable allies. Emily's audacious declaration, however, intrigued them. If you like horror and horror stories, subscribe to our channel, hit the like, and make comments. Until next time, have a scary night.